If you look at the media, you'd think bees and butterflies are the only things keeping the global biosphere from completely collapsing. But frankly, bees have the greatest PR team on the planet. They get the sweeping IMAX documentaries, the cereal box sponsorships, the global Save the Earth campaigns. Absolute divas. But here on Why of the Wild, we need to set the record straight. Pollination is not a delicate, elegant Disney movie where the butterflies and bees flit around with unicorns and rainbows. Hell no! It's a chaotic, frequently gross, and deeply desperate mosh pit struggle for genetic survival. And while the bees are hogging all the credit, a massive chunk of the ecosystem's survival rests on the shoulders of some biological degenerates operating in the shadows, like garbage-scented cockroaches, reptiles with zero personal hygiene, and mammals that literally have to commit a B&E to get a meal. Today, we're looking at the unsung, unglamorous, and deeply unaesthetic world of uncommon pollinators. This tree evolved flowers so aggressively tough and heavily armored that if a bee tried to get in, it would probably shatter its exoskeleton. The traveler's palm doesn't want insects. It gatekeeps its nectar so intensely that it actually requires a mid-sized primate to commit a break-and-enter just to get the system working. The lemur uses its thumbs to pry the botanical vault open, shoves its entire face inside, and gets absolutely covered in pollen. It then swings to the next tree, functioning as the clumsiest, most pollen-dusted safecracker in the jungle. But Madagascar doesn't have a monopoly on mammals acting like bees. Let's look at Australia, where a marsupial completely abandoned normal mammal behavior. Enter the honey possum. It doesn't eat bugs, it doesn't eat leaves. It's one of the only mammals on Earth that survives almost entirely on nectar and pollen, like the kind it gets from the nodding banksia. It evolved a highly specialized brush-tipped tongue just to mop up pollen from deep inside flowers. Its evolution looking at a mouse and deciding to turn it into a high-speed, sugar-addicted pollinator. So mammals are the VIP bouncers of the forest. But what happens when you have a plant that washes up on a remote island, only to realize the local insect population is basically zero? You can't just pack up and leave. I mean, you're a freaking plant! Welcome to Island Biogeography. When you're geographically locked out of the premium pollinator market, you have to dramatically lower your standards and swipe right on whatever happens to be walking by. Enter local reptiles. Normally, a bee is a meticulous worker. It grooms itself, packs the pollen neatly into little saddlebags, and flies off. But geckos are absolute degenerates when it comes to nectar, and they do not care. They visit flowers to drink the nectar of plants like the Trichochelea, and because they lack basic personal hygiene, the pollen just glues itself to their scales. They end up waddling to the next plant looking like a toddler who just sneezed into a bag of powdered donuts. It's a wildly inefficient delivery system, but in an isolated ecosystem, not stupid if it works is a golden rule of survival, and it gets even weirder on the Balearic Islands. This is a dead horse arum lily. As the name suggests, it smells like rotting meat in order to attract blowflies. But the local skinks figured out that this smelly plant is basically a free buffet. The lizard shows up, eats the flies the plant works so hard to attract, and in the process of stealing the plant's bait, gets completely covered in pollen. The plant tries to scam the flies, the lizard scams the plant, and somehow cross-pollination is successfully achieved through mutual biological grifting. Okay, so we've seen plants rely on brute force mammals and hygiene-deficient reptiles, but there's a sub-basement to evolutionary desperation. If you're a plant living on the dark, damp rainforest floor, you don't even have access to the sun, let alone a bee. You have to optimize your entire user base for the absolute bottom feeders of the forest. I present to you pollinating cockroaches. Some undestroyed rainforest plants realize that the only things consistently crawling around in the dark are roaches. So how do you attract them? You ditch the sweet floral scent and evolve flowers like those from the Uvaria vine that smell like fermented garbage. Duh. It's the botanical equivalent of a 3 a.m. dive bar. The roach gets a late night snack, and the plant gets to survive another generation in the dark. Oh good. But if we're talking about absolute bottom tier efficiency, we have to talk about malacrophyly. That's a real scientific term for pollination by snails and slugs. Man, science has a word for everything. Imagine looking at the genetic future of your entire species and deciding to entrust it to the slowest, slimiest creature in the woods. And there's no do-overs. Plants like wild ginger that rely on slugs feature tiny inconspicuous flowers packed tightly against the mud. As the slug slides over them, the pollen just sticks to its wet, slimy body. It then drags the pollen, at roughly a millimeter a second, to the plant next door. It's the 14.4 dial-up of internet pollination. So, what have we learned? We've learned that the concept of pollination syndromes, the idea that plants evolve specifically to match their local wildlife, isn't always an elegant ballet. Evolution doesn't care about aesthetics. It doesn't care if a system is elegant or beautiful or pleasant to look at. Evolution is just a chaotic series of workarounds to get the job done. Sometimes that requires a delicate butterfly, and sometimes it requires weaponizing a lizard, bribing a lemur, or getting slimed in the mud. Next time you see a bee in a flower, respect the hustle, but take a moment to appreciate the unsung, unglamorous weirdos working the night shift in the mud to keep this whole biosphere running. Peace!